Hello, thank you for tuning into the Natural Health Rising podcast. My name is Rachel Smith. I am a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and I've helped hundreds of people naturally reverse symptoms of autoimmune diseases and other health challenges, from digestive issues to hormone imbalances. And in these weekly episodes, you're going to learn from myself and top health experts from around the world about functional medicine and holistic health tips to help you rise to your healthiest, happiest self. Welcome. This episode is a must listen if you want to have incredible relationships and amazing lovemaking. And my guest today is honestly a wealth of knowledge. She's fun and brings so much energy to conversations. And I think that you'll have as much fun listening to this episode as I had recording it. We get into how fulfilling lovemaking and relationships has a massive positive impact on health and longevity, the negative impacts of societal shame, trauma, and cultural programming, how you can learn to have orgasms, supplements to improve lovemaking, sexual biohacking, and so much more. And my guest today is Susan Bratton, the intimacy expert to millions, who is a champion and advocate for all those who desire intimacy and passion their whole life long. She's created hundreds of techniques that transform having sex into lovemaking and is the world's most well-respected sexual biohacker. Susan is co-founder and CEO of two companies, Personal Life Media, a publisher of the Better Lover brand of heart-connected lovemaking techniques and bedroom communication skills and sexual regenerative therapies, and The 20, a manufacturer of botanical and organic supplements that enhance sexual vitality. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Hi, Rachel. It's so great to be here with you today. Before this camera even started rolling, I was like, oh, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this, because I just love what a values match we are around health, about
Mm-hmm.
the process of health, that health is an activity that we are working on all the time throughout our lives if we want to have a good, long, wonderful life full of vitality. So
Mm-hmm.
really glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And as I was saying, we could probably have hours and hours of episodes with how much knowledge you have about health and wellness and intimacy and sexual health and everything as well. So I think a good starting place with that in mind is I would love to hear your perspective of what is the importance of achieving fulfilling, passionate intimacy and sex and maintaining this for a lifetime. What does this do for our relationships, our health, and our well-being?
Yeah. I like to think about it as two people. If you took two people and let's just say the person is 30 years old, two 30-year-old women, and then you look at them later on in their lives. One of them has had the natural thing that all women go through, which is societal shame, cultural programming that makes us not feel like we're supported in our sexuality. Um, Probably some trauma, maybe some abuse. A culture that censors sex ed, but makes porn easy to access.
Mhm.
And then we take that woman and we've pumped her full of birth control pills and given her a lifelong, you know, ding against her health. Um, then we haven't actively taught her about STIs. And so somewhere along the line, she maybe picked up HPV or herpes or chlamydia or gonorrhea, or there's 20 STI. Then she never really felt comfortable about asking for what she wanted. She wasn't even really sure what she wanted because sex was such a black box in her society. And so she kind of took what she could get. And then if she gave her partner feedback, most of these women, let's just say these two women were both in relationships with male bodied partners. And she didn't want to give him feedback because every time she did, he was like, I know what I'm doing. You don't have to tell me. Or he emotionally caved. So she was like, oh, that's not worth it. And she was told to be a
Mm.
good girl and do her job of having sex with him, yet never really had satisfying sex herself. Not the kind of sex where she was getting on his schedule to make sure that they had passionate lovemaking. That she was having the kind of sex where she felt like they were just rubbing their genitals together to get off. And over time, she didn't really want much sex. As a matter of fact, she was kind of looking forward to never having to have it again.
Mm.
So that's a woman who is a typical woman in our society. In many societies, we're marginalized in the area of sexuality through patriarchy and religion that makes it very, very difficult for us to have a satisfying sex life. And so we abandon it and put our attention on our children, on our work, on other things. Let's take the other woman on the other path. She had a feminist mother who taught her all the parts of her genitals, explained how her body works, how to discuss STIs, how to feel like she was equally as important in the sexual exchange with her partner, and how to stand for herself and her own desires, to look at sex as something that was part of not just sex, but her sexual maturation was part of her personal growth. She realized that her sexuality could fuel her. Her passion was a big part of her creativity and her lust for life. She ended up attracting some good partners and had some good experiences and realized that in many cases, the different partners that she had safe sex with, so she was really ended up not getting maybe one thing that she could solve as an STI. You know, maybe she picked up gonorrhea and got rid of it, or chlamydia, and she was regularly going to the doctor for her sexual health and had the
Mhm.
ability to do that, and the funding to do that, and the support to do that. And so she had good lovers and realized, oh my gosh, I have different experiences with different lovers that teach me different things. There's a lot that I can learn. And there are things that I like. And as I'm exposed to more things, I realize how much I like a lot of things in my sexuality. She started having good orgasms because she felt good about her sexuality. She didn't have to try so hard. She realized that she wanted to have clitoral orgasms and G-spot orgasms and female ejaculation and orgasms with intercourse and anal gasms and breast gasms. And she had a couple of different sex tools that she used to cross-train and self-pleasure to awaken even more areas of her vulvo-vaginal complex, which I like to call her yoni, Y-O-N-I, which is a tantric lovemaking word for sex. She felt very good about herself. She felt sexually self expressed and she felt confident in her sexuality. And as the
Mhm.
years went on, sex got better and better and better for her, more fun. She had dates with her partner. She got married. She had children. She kept her sex life alive. She always listened to her body and spoke on behalf of what her body was feeling in the moment and felt empowered to do so and heard. As she aged, she started looking younger than all of her friends who had given up on their sexuality. Her friends kind of started falling by the side of the road. Her sex kept getting better and better. She kept acquiring sexual knowledge, learning sexual skills. Oh, now she was really good at cowgirl and she liked trying new sex positions. She suddenly realized that at 50, she looked beautiful in lingerie and she loved having her photo taken in the privacy of her bedroom with her lover. She had a sexy relationship with her partner that made their marriage really incredible, better than her friends. And she felt a little bad about it for them, but she felt great about herself and her partner. She went on in her 60s and 70s and realized that there was some genital atrophy that was happening. She did hormone replacement therapy. She went and got sexual regenerative treatments like FemiWave. She used red light therapy intravaginally with her vagina device. And she just kept expanding her sexual pleasure, her sexual confidence. She had co regulation with her partner. They generated oxytocin. She had cascades of good neurotransmitters flowing through her body, like dopamine and serotonin. She didn't fight depression. She felt good. She ended up living 10 years longer than most of her friends. As a matter of fact, she didn't even want to go on Facebook anymore because her friends now looked like her parents and she looked more like you. And she just had the most satisfying, healthy life full of longevity, love, and pleasure. And all because she had a good start, but she also fought to maintain her sexuality and overcome any obstacles that came in her way because she was dedicated to her pleasure and her power as a woman. And that's the story of why sex is good for you.
Mm, that was such a beautiful picture that you just painted for everybody in one light, and also the other light, which is the societal shaming, the cultural programming, the trauma, the lack of communication. Um, there's so many places that we could take this. So what I want to start off with is the first thing that came to my mind is in my practice, I do see the common theme of women having a really hard time setting boundaries, asking for what they need,
Yeah.
having a difficult time making sure that they're taken care of in life because they're always
Mm-hmm.
putting others first. And this is just in general things. But
Mm-hmm.
then that translates into the bedroom with things like you said, communication issues, et cetera. So, in your experience, what are some effective ways that couples can improve that communication and make sure that each partner is getting their needs met?
Yeah. There are two non-negotiables that I have given myself as a gift sexually. One, and I'm going to answer the communication, but I want to throw this down for you first. The first
Mhm.
is that women take about 20 to 30 minutes to become erect. We have the same amount of erectile tissue wrapped into our vulvo-vaginal genital structures as our male body partners do, but they get erect in about 2 minutes, and it takes us 20 to 30 minutes. And I don't like it when people think about foreplay and sex, because when they think sex, they think intercourse, and that's a patriarchal religious construct. And to relegate foreplay to something you do to get to sex is a paradigm that I want to change in people's minds. We need what is called foreplay. That is sex for us. It is
Mm.
as important as intercourse. I don't want to downplay intercourse because the other piece that I think is really important is that most women think, I'm just not the kind of woman who can come from penetration. So I'll get my pleasure in some other way, but it's what he wants. And I like it. And I like to be close to him. And I really want to call like bullshit with a big whistle on that, like pattern interrupt on that, girl. Um, Sex is, first of all orgasms are learned skills, and orgasms from intercourse are available to every single body across the gender spectrum with any expression of genital structures. And it is simply a learned skill. And what happens time and time again is that we are penetrated before we are ready because people rush through foreplay to get to intercourse because we've been societally programmed to think that's what sex actually is, and it's not. That's what the church used to get you to behave and to procreate, to make more babies, to get more tithings, to control more people, and to get more land. So when you have sex without without intercourse, you are adding to the, you know, the wound, if you will, and it's your wound that is happening. You are being wounded, and I think it's important for
Mm.
women to hear that it's simply a learned skill. The second thing is that I always have told myself since I've become aware of these things that I have to be patient with my body. My body takes 20 or 30 minutes, depending on sleep, stress, food, energy, whatever's going on with me. That's what it takes.
Mhm.
And like Ernest and Julio Gallo will make no wine before it's time. I will have no penetration before my yoni is like, give it to me. I want it. I'm ready now, ready now, ready now, ready now, ready now. If you do it one moment before she's lubricated and like, you are putting another brick in the wall of your future sexless life, because your yoni will build a grudge. Whether you don't have any control over her, you need to tune into her and listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
She's in charge all the time. Your wisdom is in your womb. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that during lovemaking, which is what I like to call it, instead of sex, because then that you think intercourse, during
Mm-hmm.
lovemaking, if I am done, I'm done. If I need to take a rest, I take a rest. If I want to change it up, I change it up. These lips speak for these lips, and I let her say her piece, because if I just keep going for him, then there's another brick in the wall, another brick
Mm-hmm.
in the wall. Your body does keep the score. And so I think it's allowing yourself and your anatomy, there's nothing broken with you. You just have literally never had the kind of pleasuring. That's why I'm such a proponent of yoni massage as
Mm-hmm.
a lovemaking technique, because it gets things going. So now I want to talk about the communication. How do you talk to your partner? And I'm going to make this one a really easy one, Rachel. And that is that probably I've written hundreds of lovemaking techniques,
Mm-hmm.
sex positions, oral pleasuring, intercourse, 20 kinds of orgasms, orgasmic activation, you name it, yoni massage, linga massage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because my brand of sex, if you will, is something that I like to call heart connected, conscious, passionate lovemaking. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, what that means is we bring our hearts into the pleasure. We're not a disconnected group of bodies rubbing genitals together. That's friction. I like to transform friction into connection. Conscious. I'm safe. I've talked about STIs. I know my contraceptive methods. I feel like I can speak up in this interaction. I can be present. My partner can be present. I want all that, and I want it to be so sexy and so surrendered that it just, as I go through my lovemaking date, it just keeps getting better and better and more turned on. And I want to get really turned on by it. And I want to feel that feeling of desire, that passion for my lover. And I want to be made love to. I want to have all the things. I don't want foreplay and sex. I don't want grab a boob and stick it in. I don't want coercion. I want full consent. I want experimentation. I want surrender. I want learning. I want interaction. I want to not have my partner be thrown off their game when I want to say something. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
quiet sex. I want communicative sex. And so I think that is all very important. And the number one technique I've ever written in my life is called the Sexual Soulmate Pact, PACT, which is a trust agreement between two people. We make a pact. And if you go to sexualsoulmatepact.com, you can download the way that I recommend that you have that kind of sex. And it is a learning process, because we are not taught anything about sex except scare tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than go into it now, your viewers and listeners can simply just download the Sexual Soulmate Pact as my gift. It teaches you how to figure out what you want using the technique called interoception, which is one of our senses,
Mm-hmm.
and how to use these lips to speak what these lips are telling us. And the biggest trick of all, especially if you're with a male-bodied partner, how to give them the feedback in a way that they won't collapse, check out, take it as failure, argue with you, or any of those things. how to have a free flowing, totally comfortable, totally confident, totally supported, completely conscious interplay of lovers that is exciting because you're learning and discovering so many things together in your lovemaking. So that's the communication piece, and I'll just make it easy by doing that.
Okay, amazing. That sounds like such a wonderful gift that I'm sure everybody is going to absolutely love.
Yeah.
Um, you reminded me of something when you said the body keeps the score,
Yep.
which if anybody has read that book, then you or knows a little bit about trauma and how that works in the body, it has to do with the body storing experiences that we've had in our tissues.
Mm-hmm.
And with the people I see with autoimmune diseases, I mean, not only do we know with science that more trauma and childhood adverse events, you're much more likely to get an autoimmune disease, but I
Oh,
see it
yeah.
all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
see it, in my practice, this high instance of trauma linked with autoimmunity. So when it comes to trauma and even maybe more specifically sexual trauma, how does this wind up impacting intimacy and lovemaking?
Yeah. Oh, God, if I could just wave my magic wand and get rid of all that sexual abuse and trauma and shame and lack of information, which creates fear, which could
Mm,
be maybe the biggest thing of all. And I have been through my trauma and come out the other side as a whole woman. There are many kinds of trauma work in the sexuality space that are best left to sexologists and therapists. But what I can
mhm,
tell you is that there are really two forks in the road. One is something called somatic therapy, which is body based therapy. And somatic sexologists are really great at getting that trauma out of your body once and for all, because you cannot think your way out of sexual abuse and trauma. You can't. It's in your body. But most people don't necessarily take the steps or can afford to hire a sexologist, though if you can, please do. They are wonderful. The other option is that many times our partners help us heal and help us get it out. And
mhm,
one of the most common ways that it is done today through love and touch and protection and security and care and commitment is through what I would call G spot awakening, yoni massage, and G spot awakening, G spot pleasuring, which, when your vulva is stimulated in loving ways, it begins to de-armor you and activate that tissue. There's a very interesting study that I read recently. Um, a um, a nurse practitioner did had 41 women, and she touched them on their breasts, their nipples, their clitoral tip, their vaginal entrance, which is called the introital sphincter, and their labia, I think it was. I think that's all of the spots. And had them explain what they felt when they were touched in those locations. And if you looked at all the responses, there were basically a couple of categories of responses. It feels numb, it
mm,
hurts, I feel shame,
mm,
or I feel pleasure. And what I found the most interesting about that was that there were a number of things I thought that were very interesting. One of them was that more women, 53%, felt the pleasure in the introital sphincter than on the tip of the clitoris. 40% felt pleasure on the clitoral glands, which is the part that sticks out of the body. That's the 5%. There's 95%. Our clitoral structure, urethral structure, and perineal structure would fill our hand up with tissue. That's how much is in our vulva, buried in there, the buried treasure. Which is why it takes 30 minutes for us to 20 to 30 minutes of genital pleasuring and, you know, turn on and relaxation to begin our arousal and fill that all with blood, which makes it bigger, increases the surface area, and sends more signals to the brain. The brain is what processes pain, shame, pleasure, numbness. That's what the brain's doing. And so if you want to convert pain, shame, numb to pleasure, you've got to touch all those parts. You've got to activate the tissue, get the blood flow in, send the signals to the brain that this is safe, you're okay, this is pleasurable, and then you start to activate all the areas of the vulva, the vagina, all the erectile tissue structures. But what I thought was the most interesting about that was that I was surprised that women felt the entrance to the vagina had more pleasure than the clitoral tip. And I think that's often because it's the only thing that anybody's ever touched on their body. You know, when you're in
Mm,
a world of grab a boob and stick it in, they've maybe never gotten clitoral pleasuring.
mhm,
So one of the things that I teach is something I call orgasmic activation, which is I teach you all the parts of your genitals, and then I show you how to pleasure them in different ways. And the best way to do it, in all honesty, is two paths. Again, there's two paths. One is if you're lucky enough to have a partner, learning the art of yoni massage. The
mhm.
second, and you can massage your yoni yourself. It's never as good. It's like getting your back scratched. Who wants to scratch their own back when you can get scratch my back, you know?
Right, right.
But the other way you can do it, and you can take your own pleasure into your own hands as you should, and this is additive to yoni massage if you have a partner. There are 8 types of sex tools that
Mhm,
orgasmically cross train and activate and awaken all of your genital tissue so that it moves from pain, shame, numb to pleasure. So anything that hurts right now, and I'd like to get into regenerative therapies for the women who are a little
mhm,
older and are starting to say, "Oh, I've lost lubrication. I'm having trouble achieving climax. I have incontinence. I've got loss. I've got atrophy of the labia. I've got thinning of the tissue. It hurts to have intercourse or even to be touched.
mhm,
Let's parking lot that, because that can be fixed, my ladies. That can be fixed. So I want you to have lifelong. I want you to be Lady B in our little story at the beginning, and this is how you do it. You reverse aging, just like we use face cream and all of the things that we do to keep ourselves young. We can keep our genitals working. But the orgasmic cross training, when you have a pleasure toolbox that has the 8 types of tools, they activate different parts of your genital system and awaken, stimulate, engorge, and send pleasure signals to different parts of your brain. The work of Dr. Nan Wise, who is a sexual neuroscientist, has proven that the different parts of our vulva and vaginal complex fire up different parts of the brain. Imagine how much younger, happier, and more cognitively you would function if you were sending massive amounts of oxygenation to many parts of your brain instead of one, when you have one pathway to orgasm, if you even have that.
mhm,
So all of the tissue is orgasmic, not just the tip of the clitoris, as that study proved by the fact that women felt that the pleasure point was their introital sphincter.
mhm.
Everything is. You can literally take a nice lubey finger. Oh, and I want to tell you about my lube recommendation. A nice lubey finger down the edge of the inner labia, my little frilly edge of my inner labia, right along that edge, and it can make me orgasm from the lightest of touch because I have trained myself. I've activated all the areas of my yoni. So if you go to because everybody's going to be like, what are the tools?
Right, right.
I have a link. It's orgasmiccrosstraining.com. Most of these tools can be purchased on Amazon, but they're not Chinese crap with phthalates and plasticizers in them. They're high quality products with good motors that penetrate deep into the tissue, that can be set very lightly or more intensely, that activate your G spot, your cervical orgasms, all of the areas inside your vagina, your entire clitoral structure, all of the labia, all the things. And
Mhm,
so I think that's something that we women can very easily do, is begin with one tool, add the next one, add the next one, and then start using them in combination, which is what I like to do. One in, one out. So nice.
amazing. I wish we had so much more time, so
I
but we
know.
don't. So let's switch into getting into some of the sexual biohacking, the intimate regenerative therapies that you advocate
Yeah.
for. Tell us,
Yeah.
what is that? And
Yes.
what are some tools that people can use in that realm?
Yes. The very first thing that happens over time is that if you're not using exertion, high intensity interval training,
Mm.
muscle strength training, doing cardio, then, and even if you age, your vascular system starts to retract. And as it pulls away, and as plaque builds up, if you're not eating, if you're eating seed oils and things like that, eating
Mm.
fried foods, and you're eating a lot of white flour and white sugar and convenience foods and not cooking your own food, you're getting basically you're calcifying plaque in your system, and it's making it hard to get blood flow to your pelvic bowl. And you're not eating leafy greens, you're not eating beetroot, you're using an antibacterial mouthwash, you're taking acid blockers or proton pump inhibitors. Every single one of these is a brick in the wall of your future heart attack and stroke, right? And so I'm preaching to the choir right here, Rachel. So you lose nitric oxide production as you age, no matter what you do. At 50, you have half the nitric oxide production you had at 20. So the single biggest thing you can do to keep the blood flowing to your pelvic bowl and into all that tissue while you're activating it now is to take a nitric oxide supplement. And if you're over 40, citrulline is better than arginine based on all of the clinical data, both lab and human data that I have read.
Hmm.
Citrulline comes from watermelon. Citrullus vulgaris is the name of a watermelon. And I actually do I have one here? I don't think I do, because I just packed up. I'm headed to the Vibe show down in LA this week to show everyone all the orgasmic cross training tools. They're on my website too, by the way, at betterlover.com. So, people like to have it. Like, tell me more. Nitric oxide supplement is a very, very good thing to do in addition to leafy greens and beetroots. Get the blood flow to your genitals so it can fill up with blood, so you can get your lady boners, so you can feel the pleasure. That's
Hmm.
number one. Easy. Number two, yoni massage. Use the tools, use the orgasmic cross training tools. Get things moving down there.
Hmm.
Number three, use something called FemiWave, which is an acoustic wave treatment that you go in and have 6 treatments. FemiWave.com/Susan gives you a bonus. I'm a spokesperson for them because I told them I want to be. I get no money for you going to that page. And what it does is it sends these little shock waves into the tissue. It does not hurt.
Hmm.
And it stimulates new tissue growth, which stimulates vascularization regrowth, which
Mm.
stimulates nerve regrowth, because the nerves they're not oxygenated with blood supply directly. They have to grow with the blood vessels, which is why as you age, when you have vascular retraction, it atrophies the tissue, it shrinks everything, and it makes it hard to achieve orgasm. Hormone therapy: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. I like to take it, estrogen and testosterone. I put the estrogen up inside my vagina. I have it compounded in a shea butter, because a
Hmm.
lot of the carrier creams that you get are full of petrochemicals. How nice for our pharmaceutical business. So I use a shea butter estradiol combination, a Biest it's called, intravaginally. And then I have a shea butter 1-click testosterone cream that I rub on my clitoris
Hmm.
and labia. That keeps the volume. It's almost like the estrogen helps with the hippocampal volume and the tissue volume, and the testosterone helps with that tissue volume of the clitoris and makes you want to have sex, makes sex feel better, gives you good orgasms, gives you lady balls so you feel more confident. I mean, testosterone has so many benefits. Also, if you have a male-bodied partner, he gives you testosterone. He's a testosterone donator through kissing, through your saliva, and through semen in your vagina or your mouth. So the good news is that semen has over 20 fantastic ingredients for us female-bodied people, for their partners. And that's another way that you can get it. And then the last thing that I would say is that I really like something called the vagina device. I wish I had it here, darling. I'm sorry that I don't. But if you go to vaginadevice.com, you will see it. It's an intravaginal device for women who don't have access to FemiWave or want something that they can do at home. It solves a part of the problem, which is it helps intravaginally with red light therapy, photobiomodulation, to increase the mitochondrial production of ATP and cellular genesis so that you are thickening the tissue. And therefore, and the red light also creates glycogen, which is what your good vaginal bacteria like to eat. It's the sugar of good vaginal microbiome bacteria. And so photobiomodulation intravaginally helps with, and it has warmth and it has toning for Kegel toning, and it helps lift the pelvic floor, give you good contractions for orgasm, thickens the tissue, works in your microbiome. It's a fantastic device, vagina device. So that's another thing that I think is really important. So those are some of the things that any woman can have access to reverse the atrophy of aging and fix those problems we run into.
Hmm. Okay. Couple follow-up questions with those.
Yeah,
For the FemiWave, for example,
yeah,
when does somebody get this done? Is there a certain age point? Is there a
yeah,
feeling that someone will notice where they're like, oh, okay, I should go get these treatments?
yeah. Are you having loss of lubrication? Are you having
Mhm.
any urinary urge or stress incontinence? Are you noticing the tissue in your vaginal lining is getting thin? Are you, and it can't, you're not quite fixing it with the estrogen. Like sometimes it gets so sore and sensitive, you need more than just
Mhm.
the estrogen can give you. Are you having trouble achieving climax? Are you noticing that your labia are sagging? All of these things are when you would go. And it typically starts hitting in midlife. So
Mm.
I started at 55, but I wish they had invented it when I was 50. So I would say that was about, but remember that I also started doing bioidentical hormone therapy in my 40s. Now I'm 62 and I still menstruate. And I do that on purpose because our menopause is the beginning of our planned obsolescence. When we can no longer reproduce, our body starts essentially atrophying and breaking down at an accelerated rate. And I like menstruating.
Mhm.
So actually, I have my period right now. I can't conceive anymore at 62, but I still want to keep my menstrual cycles going. And I do that. I don't even take that much estrogen and I just continue to menstruate. So I've been taking hormone therapy in perimenopause. I began with progesterone and estrogen, and then I just kept it going, and I love it, and I feel good, and I'm super happy with it. So it's
Mhm.
not for everyone. A lot of women are like, oh, I don't want my period anymore. But for me, I did, and I do, and I like it. So, um, yeah, that's whenever you're ready, 40s, everyone ages so differently.
Mhm. That's actually amazing. I think that's a really cool choice that most people probably don't even realize that they can make for themselves with continuing to menstruate.
Yeah. I
And
have this silly saying, Rachel, maybe you can help me with it. I say, if she ain't bleeding, she's receding. And I think that
mm,
sounds ridiculous, but I haven't come up with anything better. So that's what I say.
I like it. I like it. I'm gonna remember it for sure. Um, and one more question on the FemiWave.
Yeah.
Do people do this once? Like you said, it's a few treatments, but is it a
Series of 6.
one time six treatments, or do you do it again in another point in your life?
You'll have to do it again in another point in your life because you continue to age no matter what the hell you do.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe you go in for, and here's the thing, I don't like those intravaginal lasers. That's what most women know about. I honestly feel
Mm.
like from RF devices and intravaginal lasers, I don't like how damaging they are for the healing that you get. I find the acoustic wave much more holistic to the whole vulva, because remember, our three erectile tissue systems are the clitoral structure, which is the tip, the shaft, the arms, the legs, and the body, the urethral structure, which is not a G spot, it's a tube of erectile tissue, and the perineal structure between the vaginal canal and the rectum Those are our 3 erectile tissue systems, and you can't get to them just by putting a laser in a vagina. That's why FemiWave is like the queen of safe vaginal restoration and rejuvenation, because it's tiny little micro damage. It's not like your vagina's not weeping from burns, from
Mm-hmm.
those like lasers that they put in there. So that's why I think FemiWave is really good. So it's a series of 6 treatments, so they can do it delicately and rejuvenate the tissue over time. And then you can go back in 5 years or whenever you need to, because you are unfortunately going to continue to age as much as we fight it.
Mm-hmm. And another quick follow-up on the citrulline. I know
Yeah.
you're the CEO of the 20, which is a
Yes.
supplement branch that you have as well.
Yes.
So is there something from there you recommend, or is there a
Yeah.
dosage or timing with citrulline, a
Yes.
specific reason that someone would want to start citrulline? And just share a little bit more about the nuances there.
Yeah. I would start citrulline in your 40s and up your vegetable intake, up your leafy greens, and up your beetroot. Nitric oxide it's nitrates that are converted to nitrites in the crypts of your tongue. There are these bacteria. That's
Mhm.
why you shouldn't use antibacterial mouthwash that convert the nitrates from the nitrogen that comes from the soil and the plants to nitrates to nitrites. And then when you swallow, the nitrites are converted to nitric acid by your stomach acid. So if you're using acid blockers, you're shutting down your system there. And that's the gaseous signaling molecule that squeezes your veins and arteries and capillaries you don't have enough blood to go everywhere in your body all at once. You've got about 5 liters. And so your body has vascular tone that squeezes it into your brain, your heart, and all your parts. And that is a very important thing. Now, the problem with most citrulline is that it's made in China. It's
Mhm.
a white powder. And what they do is they take pesticide laden fields of corn, they put it into big vats, they turn it into corn liquor, which is basically a sugar, corn sugar. And then they inoculate it with a bacteria that turns the sugars into arginine. And then they inoculate it with another bacteria that turns the arginine into citrulline. And all the pesticides from that field are still in that supplement. So that's why I made Flow, FLOW. And let me give you a special podcast link for those who are like, okay, that's what I need. I need something that's actually made from organic watermelon rind, citrus, spinach powder, bitter cherries, and pine bark, believe it or not, for the pyrocyanidins, which help with blood flow. And that's at Buy Flow Now, BUYFLOWNOW, if you'd like to try my particular supplement. I think it's very hard to find organic, supplements made from organic fruit and vegetables. And it's not
Mhm.
that expensive either. I make a high volume of it. It's a very popular product. So that's a good one too.
Okay, amazing. We'll put that link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned that you wanted to share a little bit about you have had some stuff going on with your health personally and some other things you're doing biohacking wise. What's going on
Yeah.
in your life right now?
There's one more thing I want to tell you about the sex stuff, if I may, before we
Yeah,
go over to that. Yeah, because I want to tell you about a few, like a kind of a few new biohacking, ageless types of things. But
sure.
I want to tell you about this. I think it may be hard for me to get this to you in Medellin. So when you come back to the US, reach out to me and I
Okay.
will have this sent to you. In biohacking, we call things a stack, where you do multiple things together that are synergistic to give you a greater effect.
Hmm.
And that's what this particular lubricant is. And I've been waiting for 2 decades to find something this good. I'm super excited about this particular product offering because it's called Foria, like euphoria, and it's CBD based lubrication, an awakening oil, and a melt. And it's a triple system that works synergistically together to activate the vulva and to give you your vaginal mucosal lining some really good lubrication. And then a nice lube on top of that is like the cherry on the top. So basically, you start with, let me show you. Hang on, I got to grab it over here. Got one right here. So the melts are, and this is at pleasureprotocol.com. The melts are these little suppositories. And when you open it up, it's just this little cacao butter. It smells kind of like chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
It's organic, sustainable cacao butter and CBD, and they have different melts. They've got relief melts that have extra CBD. They have vibrance melts for more moisture. They have intimacy melts for intercourse, and they have booty melts as well. So you can explore your back door, which is a very nice thing. Don't knock it till you've tried it with someone
Mm-hmm.
very, slowly. And I love these because you insert this prior to your lovemaking. And then you take the awaken oil and you only need one drop, maybe two if at the most. And you put that on the mons, the outer labia, the inner labia, the vestibule, the clitoral tip and shaft, the perineal area, and the fourchette, which is where your labia come down and join together at the bottom. Rub it all over, all the way into your groin, everywhere. This is not a lubricant. This is an awakening oil that uses the endocannabinoid system via phytocannabinoids, which are CBD. They're
Mm-hmm.
phytocannabinoids, and that's our pleasure healing pathway. It activates that thing I was talking about earlier, the vulva brain connection. It awakens the tissue through the endocannabinoid system and the botanicals in it. So you start to feel more pleasure. You're converting the shame, the pain, and the numb to pleasure. And then you can add on the sex oil for more lubricant if you need it. Some women are like, I'm plenty lubricated. Other women are like, I'm dry as a bone. Pour that on there. And
Right.
so this system works really beautifully and synergistically together. And I think that is the nicest product I have ever found for pleasure. And I just love it so much. And it really, the melts make intercourse feel better than it's ever felt before. I love it.
Mm, that's so good because it can be hard sometimes to find stuff that's non-toxic and healthy, but also that's high quality and good.
That's
That
right.
feels good. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's beautiful product. They have a really nice product. They also have a breast oil that I love. I
Mm-hmm.
love breast massage because if you think about it, our lips and mouth, our breasts and nipples, and our vulva and vagina are a three-legged stool of our arousal. That 20 minutes that takes us to get to arousal, first we need to feel safe and held and comfortable and warm enough and or cool enough and all of those things. And then we can begin our arousal ascension. But if we activate the three areas, we get engorgement from the inside as well as from the stimulation from the outside. And so the
Mm-hmm.
breast oil is really nice, as is their massage oil.
Amazing.
Yeah, I have like a row of Foria products in my life, which I will never. I mean, that's like if there's a fire in the house, I'm grabbing that in the family album. I mean,
uh,
yeah. So
oh,
to switch back, go ahead. Yeah, you go.
no,
I'll
I was
just
gonna say, do you have some time to we're
yeah, I'll
running out of
finish it
time.
up.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Go
Let's
for it.
finish it up because I've been doing some pretty crazy shit lately. I have a wellness center in my town
Mm-hmm.
called Jai Zen, and so I work out pretty much every day I possibly can. I don't work out when I travel because that's enough stimulation and movement for me and all that stuff. But I am a weightlifter. I've got hard as rock biceps, and I really work on my strength. And so I like to work out and I do cardio strength training. So I'm getting the benefit of all of that. But the other things that I do, I go to the wellness center and I do a number of things. One is that I ride a kind of like an exerbike thing that does high intensity interval training and uses blood flow restriction and cooling pads so that I can push even harder, doing a 20-minute HIIT session. That's called the Vasper. And it has, since I have been doing it, I have visible blood vessel networks running all over my body. You can look at my thighs and they're covered in a super highway of nice blood vessels.
Mm-hmm.
My arms, my sides, you can see and the sides of my breast, you can see the blood vessel networks. I have not had that since I was a teenager. So vascularization is blood flow. It's everything in life and sex. It's so important. So I do that. I also do cryo. I'd go into a negative 124-degree cold room for 5 minutes and I think about what I'm going to cook for dinner. That's how I occupy myself. I sometimes just come up with what I'm going to stop at the store and get on the way home, or I think about how I'm going to make what I have in the refrigerator to occupy my mind, because that tightens up the skin. And when you go into cryo before you go on the red light bed, next I go on the red light bed for 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
a big Novathor photobiomodulation red light bed, keep my eyes open, get that light in my eyes. And it's very interesting because the cold makes your body think it's winter and it's starved for sunlight. So it takes in more of the red light. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that for skin, health, mood, etc., as well as immune function. I also have recently, I fell skiing in February and I tore my ACLs and my MCLs as a downstream effect of having long haul COVID, which gave me a lot of soft tissue damage, including tendons, ligaments, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super pissed about that because my vision for myself is that I'll be 87 years old skiing down the mountain. I don't know why. That's just my vision for myself. I want to ski my whole life long. And then I fell and it tore too easily because of the damage of that virus. And I thought, I've got to grow this stuff back. So I started with exosome therapy, and then I harvested my own stem cells and sent them to a cryobank. And I've had stem cells injected into my, it's called intra-articular when it goes into your joints. And I've had stem cell IV, but I have also had intraosseous injection. I'm about to
Mm-hmm.
release a video at betterlover.com where my doctor wore my Ray-Ban Meta video glasses while he took a drill while I was under sedation and drilled into my leg bones, and then he unscrewed the drill and took a syringe of my own stem cells and stuck it into my bones. Because, we're kind of taught that there's your bones, your ligaments, your tendons, but actually your bones grow your ligaments and tendons. They're actually growing out of your bone. So if you want to stimulate, the French have done all these really good studies on stem cells, intraosseous stem cell injection. And I now have 15 to 20% more meniscus, and new tendrils of ligaments are growing out of my bone. I'm regrowing my ACLs and MCLs. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I've got a whole bunch of new hair growth and my eyesight got better. I got to go change my prescription down because of my stem cells. So I decided to harvest my own stem cells even at 62 because my biological age, my methylation biological age, according to True Diagnostics, is 43. My
Mm-hmm.
glycan age, which is the glycan, my sugar side of things, how much glycan I'm producing, glycogens, that is 23. So I'm very, very biologically young, even though I'm chronologically 62. And I
Mm-hmm.
elected to have my DNA match stem cells cultured in a lab and cryo banked so that I could use them as needed for the rest of my life. And if I were going to give any young woman advice, I would say save up your shekels and buy yourself your stem cell cryo bank and your egg cryo your eggs. Because my girlfriends who are in their late 30s and early 40s who have not met a guy, or who have made a choice to be with a guy that got them pregnant that wasn't the perfect guy for them, if they're
Mm-hmm.
heterosexual, are very, very disappointed in how much angst they have over wanting to have a baby and worrying about the demise of their egg viability.
Mm-hmm.
And it is $80,000 to get an egg fertilized from another woman and implanted in you to have a baby. And it is maybe $5,000 to get your stem cells out, and it's like a couple $1,000s to get your eggs out, and we have the technology. So you don't need, we women today, when we're closing in on income parity, we don't have to make the same choice and have technology. We don't have to make the same choices to be in situations that don't completely serve us. We can
Mm-hmm.
handle this. We got this.
Mm-hmm. That's so much incredible information for people to look into. Do you have a quick recommendation for the stem cell therapy location? Because I feel like sometimes there's a little bit of gray area with stem cells.
It's less and less gray now that it's been approved by the FDA for one to harvest their own stem cells.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to make a recommendation because the doctor to which I went, I got a little bit of an infection from the lipo when he took the fat out of my back. And that wasn't a good experience for me to have to take antibiotics and get rid of it from the
Mm-hmm.
lipo.
Okay.
So, and I think he said he'd literally never had that happen before, but it happened to me. So I
Yeah.
don't give a recommendation to him. If you call American Cell Technology, that's the cryo bank. That I think is the leading cryobank, the one that I chose to trust based on doing a lot of fact checking with a lot of people. And they can probably refer you to someone in your area.
Okay.
Shop around. It's not that hard. They just have to have the equipment and have done it. It's not, it's literally not even surgery. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a little lipo of the fat. And I don't think that you necessarily need to get the bone marrow. The adipose tissue stem cells are perfectly fine.
Okay. That's good
That's
to
just my
know.
experience so far. You got to do your own homework.
Mm-hmm. And to wrap up, we'll leave the listeners with one more thing. So if you
Okay.
could leave them with one tip that they
Yeah.
could implement this week to help them
Yeah.
live a healthier, happier life, what would that
Mm-hmm.
be?
Solo pleasuring. Get out whatever dusty old toys in your drawer and start there, and then start orgasmic cross training. Take your sexuality into your own hands, literally.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. We have lots of links that you've thrown out during
Yeah.
the show. We'll keep those in the show notes, and any other final links or things you want to share with the listeners before we go.
Yeah. If you want to ask me any questions about anything that I've said, the best way to do that is to go to betterlover.com and subscribe to my email newsletter. Because if you reply to any newsletter I send you, I send out kind of like a sex tips newsletter with all kinds of health information, biohacking,
Mm-hmm.
sex techniques, pleasuring skills, all kinds of stuff. And if you reply to any email you get from me, it comes to me personally, and you can ask me anything you want, and I will reply. Often I'll reply and go, "Oh, here's the answer. Here's, I've written about it already. I've been doing this for decades."
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the only other thing would be that if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, I'm my name, which is Susan Bratton, Bratton.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show, Susan. This was incredible.
My pleasure, darling.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video and comment, letting me know what you enjoyed and what you want to see more of. Also, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get alerts when new content is coming out and you don't miss any videos. And just a quick reminder that this information is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or medical condition. Please consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, supplements, or medical treatment. If you're looking for a functional medicine practitioner, please reach out to me. And thank you again for watching, and keep striving to become your healthiest, happiest self.